The locker room door exploded shut with a sound so violent the metal hinges shook against the concrete wall. Sweat hung in the air like steam. Tension, anger, fear, and standing in the center of that suffocating room was the most famous fighter on earth, suddenly realizing he might have gone too far. Because minutes before the biggest fight of his life, his trainer walked out and left him alone. The crowd outside was already roaring. 60,000 people packed inside the arena, screaming beneath the brutal heat of Manila. Cameras waited. Reporters crowded the tunnel. History was only moments away. But inside that locker room, none of it mattered, because the one man who understood the champion better than anyone else had just thrown his towel against the wall and walked away in fury. For years, the world believed the fight itself was the real drama of that night. They remembered the punches, the blood, the exhaustion, the collapse afterward. But almost nobody knew what happened before the opening bell. Almost nobody knew the greatest fighter alive nearly entered that ring without the man who helped build him. And it started with something small. A disagreement. A look. A sentence spoken with too much confidence. The kind of moment that doesn't seem dangerous at first, until pride turns it into something explosive. The trainer stood near the lockers, wrapping tape around his fists with sharp, angry movements. His face was red, his jaw tight. He had spent nearly 2 decades protecting this fighter from everyone else in the world, and now he was trying to protect him from himself. But the champion wasn't listening anymore. That was the real problem. Not the opponent waiting in the arena, not the pressure, not even the heat. It was ego. Success had changed something. The victories had become so enormous, so legendary, that the fighter no longer believed anyone understood the game better than he did, especially not the men in his corner. The trainer had seen it growing for years. Small signs at first, ignoring advice, changing strategy mid-fight, taking punishment just to prove a point. Every victory made the confidence stronger. Every comeback made him feel untouchable. But confidence can quietly become something else when nobody stops it in time. Outside the locker room, fans chanted the champion's name. Drums echoed through the arena tunnels. The atmosphere felt electric, dangerous. Yet inside that cramped room, silence stretched between the two men like a rope pulled too tight. One wrong word could snap it completely. The trainer finally broke the silence. His voice low, controlled, but shaking underneath. You can't fight this man the way you fought the last one. He pointed toward the arena entrance. If you stand there and let him hit you, he'll put you in the hospital. The fighter smiled, calm, almost amused. The same smile that had frustrated opponents for years. You worry too much, he said softly. I know exactly what I'm doing. Those words hit harder than a punch, because the trainer realized something terrifying in that moment. The fighter wasn't asking for guidance anymore. He had already decided the plan. The corner no longer mattered. The trainer stepped closer. Listen to me carefully, he said. This isn't the same kind of fight. This man can end careers with one punch. You move, you jab, you stay off the ropes. The fighter leaned back casually against the locker. That's what everybody expects me to do, he answered. I'm going to shock the world again. The trainer's eyes narrowed. He knew that tone, that dangerous mixture of confidence and stubbornness. The fighter had discovered something during previous victories. Fearlessness could break opponents mentally. But sometimes fear exists for a reason. Sometimes it keeps people alive. The room grew hotter. Sweat rolled down everyone's faces. Even the cornermen standing nearby avoided eye contact. Nobody wanted to interrupt. They could feel something building, something ugly. The trainer slammed his hand against the table. This isn't a game anymore, he shouted. You think because you won before, you can ignore everything now? The fighter's expression changed instantly. The smile disappeared. Pride rose like fire behind his eyes. Nobody knows this fight better than me, he replied coldly. That sentence changed everything. The trainer stared at him in disbelief. 14 years together. Thousands of rounds in the gym. Endless battles. Victories. Defeats. Pain. Sacrifice. He had stood beside this man when the world turned against him, protected him, guided him, believed in him. And now he was being dismissed like he was just another voice in the crowd. You don't listen anymore. the trainer whispered. The anger in his voice was gone now, replaced by hurt. You think you're bigger than everybody around you. The fighter looked away instead of answering, and somehow that silence hurt worse than any insult. The trainer grabbed his jacket from the chair. The movement shocked everyone in the room. One of the assistants stepped forward nervously. "Angie," he muttered, but the trainer ignored him. "I won't stand there and watch you destroy yourself," he said firmly. "Not tonight." The fighter folded his arms. "Then maybe you should leave." Nobody breathed. For a second, even the noise from the arena seemed distant. The trainer stared at him, searching his face, waiting for him to take the words back. But the fighter stood motionless, pride refusing to bend. So the trainer nodded slowly, painfully. "Fine," he said. "You want this your way? Do it without me." Then he walked out. The locker room door slammed, so hard the walls rattled. And suddenly the greatest fighter alive was standing completely still, staring at the empty doorway, realizing his trainer might not come back. Outside, the hallway buzzed with movement. Officials rushed by. Reporters chased headlines. Fans screamed from the arena seats. But inside that locker room, everything felt frozen. The assistants looked terrified. Nobody knew what to say. The fighter sat down quietly. For the first time all night, he stopped talking. The confidence remained on his face, but doubt had quietly entered the room beside it, because deep down he knew something nobody else understood. The trainer wasn't just part of the team. He was the anchor, the calming voice between rounds, the man who knew how to pull brilliance out of chaos. Without him, the fight suddenly felt different, more dangerous, more real. One of the cornermen finally spoke carefully. "He'll cool down," he said. "He'll come back." But the fighter didn't answer, because he wasn't sure anymore. Minutes passed. The sound of the arena grew louder. Every second pushed them closer to the ring walk. Yet the trainer still hadn't returned. And now even the assistants were beginning to panic. The fighter wrapped his own hand silently, tape pulling tight across bruised knuckles. His breathing slower now, focused, but inside his mind memories kept appearing. Long nights in training camps, endless advice, warnings, sacrifices, all the moments that built him into who he was. And suddenly, for the first time in years, he felt alone. The truth was brutal. Talent made him special, but guidance made him great. And the man who provided that guidance was somewhere outside that room wondering if their partnership had finally reached its breaking point. In the hallway, the trainer stood with his arms crossed against the wall. Furious, hurt, exhausted, he could still hear the crowd roaring through the concrete tunnels. He knew history was minutes away, but another thought haunted him even more. What if the fighter was wrong tonight? He had watched the opponent closely. The power, the aggression, the violence hidden inside every punch. This wasn't theater anymore. One mistake could end everything, and the trainer feared the fighter's pride had blinded him to that reality. An arena worker passed by and recognized him immediately. "You okay?" the man asked nervously. The trainer forced a nod, but he wasn't okay, because leaving that locker room felt like abandoning family. Yet staying felt like enabling destruction. Back inside, the fighter finally stood up. He walked slowly toward the doorway, stopped, looked down the hallway, and there in the distance, he saw the familiar figure of his trainer leaning against the wall beneath the harsh arena lights. For a moment, neither man moved. The assistants watched silently. The noise of the crowd echoed around them. Sweat rolled down faces. Time felt painfully slow. Then the fighter took a step forward, and another. The trainer saw him approaching, but kept his eyes forward, refusing to look at him, refusing to surrender his anger too quickly. When the fighter finally reached him, he stopped only inches away. The hallway suddenly felt tiny, heavy, emotional. "I need you in my corner," the fighter said quietly. The trainer didn't respond. "I mean it," the fighter continued. "I can't do this without you." Still silence. The trainer's jaw tightened. "You already decided you know everything," he muttered. "So what do you need me for?" The fighter lowered his head slightly. The arrogance that filled the locker room earlier was gone now, replaced by something far more human. Fear, And then he whispered the words nobody expected to hear from him. I was wrong. The trainer finally looked at him. There was no performance in the fighter's face anymore. No jokes, no poetry, no showmanship, just exhaustion, honesty, vulnerability. The kind of honesty that only appears when pride finally cracks under pressure. I thought I could figure it all out myself, he admitted softly. But I need you. The trainer stared at him for several long seconds. Years of memories rushed through his mind. Every fight, every argument, every triumph. He remembered the young, loudmouth kid he first met decades earlier, and the complicated man standing in front of him now. And suddenly the anger began to fade, because underneath the fame, the confidence, the ego, he could still see the same fighter who trusted him from the beginning. The trainer exhaled slowly. Then listen to me tonight, he said firmly. No games, no proving points. You hear me? The fighter nodded immediately. I hear you. The trainer stepped forward and grabbed both sides of his face. You move. You stay smart. And when I tell you something between rounds, you listen. Again, the fighter nodded. For the first time all night, the tension finally loosened. The assistants behind them looked relieved. One even laughed nervously under his breath. The partnership had survived, barely. But nobody understood yet how important that moment truly was. Because the emotional battle in that hallway would shape everything that happened later inside the ring. The trainer walked back into the locker room beside him, and the atmosphere changed instantly. Calm returned, focus returned, structure returned. The fighter sat back down on the stool while the trainer resumed work in the corner like nothing had happened. But both men knew something had shifted between them forever. The fighter glanced up quietly while his gloves were tightened. You really would have left? He asked. The trainer paused before answering. I already did. That answer stayed in the fighter's mind long after they walked toward the ring. The arena exploded when he emerged from the tunnel. Thousands screaming. Flashbulbs everywhere. The heat almost unbearable. Yet despite all the noise around him, one thought kept repeating in his mind. He had almost lost the one person who truly kept him grounded. The walk to the ring felt different now. Slower, heavier. The fighter bounced lightly on his feet, trying to appear relaxed, but the emotional confrontation still lingered beneath the surface. Beside him, the trainer stayed silent, focused completely on the task ahead. No jokes, no speeches, just concentration. Across the arena, the opponent waited like a storm ready to explode. Massive, dangerous, focused. The crowd could feel it too. This wasn't just another championship fight. It felt personal, violent, unpredictable. The kind of night where legends could collapse. As the fighter climbed to the ropes, he glanced back toward his corner. The trainer stood there calmly now, organizing towels, checking water bottles, adjusting gloves. Familiar movements, steady movements. And suddenly the fighter felt calmer too. The opening bell rang. Immediately the opponent attacked with terrifying force. Heavy punches slammed into arms and ribs. The ring shook with movement. The crowd roared louder with every exchange. The heat inside the arena felt suffocating. Sweat flew under the bright lights. But between rounds, the trainer's voice cut through everything. Sharp, clear, controlled. Don't stand there too long. Move left. Keep him turning. And this time the fighter listened. That was the difference. Not talent, not courage, trust. Every round became more brutal. Punches landed harder. Bodies slowed. Faces swelled. Yet the connection between fighter and trainer grew stronger with each passing minute. The argument in the locker room had stripped away the ego. What remained was pure trust. At one point, the fighter drifted dangerously toward the ropes for too long. The opponent unleashed a violent combination. The crowd erupted, but the trainer screamed instantly from the corner, "Move now!" The fighter reacted immediately, escaping just before another devastating punch crashed toward his head. Later he would admit something privately to close friends. If the trainer hadn't returned that night, he might never have survived the fight. Round after round, exhaustion consumed both fighters. The arena transformed into something primal. Sweat, blood, heat, noise. Yet through all of it, the trainer remained steady, calm during chaos, guidance inside violence. Exactly what the fighter needed most. By the later rounds, both men inside the ring looked barely human, their bodies drained, faces swollen, legs heavy. But every time the fighter returned his stool, the trainer brought him back mentally, one instruction at a time, one breath at a time. At one point, cameras captured the fighter staring silently at his trainer, while the crowd screamed around them. The look lasted only seconds. But hidden inside it was gratitude, because both men knew how close they had come to disaster before the fight even began. The final round became legendary, the kind of punishment that lives forever in boxing history. Yet somehow the fighter kept going, listening, adjusting, surviving. And when the fight finally ended, he collapsed into his corner completely exhausted. The trainer caught him before he slid off the stool. For a long moment, neither man spoke. The crowd roared wildly around them. Reporters climbed onto the ring apron. Officials rushed everywhere. But inside that corner, the moment felt strangely quiet, personal. Finally, the fighter looked up with swollen eyes and whispered, "Thank you for not leaving." The trainer shook his head slowly. "Don't make me do it again." Both men laughed weakly through pure exhaustion. Years later, people would remember the punches from that night, the drama, the brutality, the greatness. But almost nobody knew the real story began before the opening bell, inside a tiny locker room, where pride nearly destroyed one of the most important partnerships in sports history. The fighter eventually admitted something else later in life, too. Success had made him difficult. Fame had convinced him he could outthink danger forever. And the trainer, more than anyone else, understood how risky that mindset had become. That argument in Manila changed them both. The trainer became more direct afterward, less willing to stay silent when he believed the fighter was making mistakes. And the fighter, despite all his confidence, slowly learned something powerful. Greatness does not mean refusing guidance. Real greatness means knowing when to trust the people who love you enough to challenge you. As the years passed and the fighter's body began slowing down, the trainer remained beside him through victories, through defeats, through illness, through painful decline. Loyalty outlasted everything else. When the fighter lit the Olympic torch years later, his hands trembling from disease while the entire world watched emotionally, the trainer stood in the crowd with tears in his eyes, because he remembered the young champion from decades earlier, loud, proud, fearless, stubborn. And he remembered the hallway in Manila where that same champion finally whispered, "I was wrong." In the end, that may have been the bravest thing he ever said, because anyone can pretend to be invincible. Anyone can protect their ego, but admitting you need someone else, admitting fear, admitting weakness, that takes a different kind of strength. The fight in Manila became famous because of violence. But the real heart of the story was never violence at all. It was trust, forgiveness, vulnerability, the understanding that even the strongest people sometimes need someone standing beside them, reminding them who they are. And maybe that's why the story still matters today. Not because of the punches, not because of the championship, but because hidden underneath all the noise was something deeply human. A proud man realizing he could not carry everything alone, and another man loving him enough to walk away, then come back before it was too late.